Coming up, Alexander Boris dePfeffel Johnson has vowed to maximise the benefits of Brexit in 2022. One of the major Brexit benefits he selected was the reintroduction of the crown stamp on pint glasses, replacing the EU mark of conformity, and effectively meaning those glasses can only be sold and used in the UK and no longer exported to Europe. And that made Johnson's shortlist of major Brexit benefits, which is peak Brexit, along with the bragging about the French-manufactured blue UK passports, which, like the vaccine rollout and so many other so-called Brexit gains, were perfectly possible while still a member of the EU. Stay tuned. If you enjoy the Truth to Power channel, please give this video a like, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications of future videos. Away from those mythical sunlit uplands of Brexit, down here in the real world, the UK imports 5 times the amount of food from the EU that it exports to the EU. And as some Brexit import regulations were finally implemented only last weekend, food supply issues and delays could remain a major concern not just this month, but far into the future, as those in the know warn that many British businesses may give up importing food altogether, and with no EU workers to pick British crops, it'll be interesting to see how the incompetent killer clown in number 10 maximises this particular Brexit benefit. On the 1st of January 2022, Brexit import regulations were finally implemented by the British government after a year of delays in attempts to defray the shock of Brexit to the British economy. But now that they're in force, at least partially, the previous permanent secretary at the Department for Exiting the European Union has warned of teething problems. Philip Rycroft has admitted that some sectors will be hit harder than others by the new Brexit regulations, a prime example of what is often referred to as non-tariff barriers to trade. Rycroft also uses the cliched euphemism of teething problems to describe the current situation, but, in a break from his former Brexit masters, went on to say that some businesses may ultimately decide it is not worth the hassle, to use his phrase, to continue importing products from the EU, given the massive administrative burden now belatedly falling on British importers. Philip Rycroft was speaking on Radio 4's PM Drive Time news programme and went on to say that the new regulations might prove too much for some companies, quoting the Federation of Small Businesses as saying that as many as 3/4 of their members are unprepared to deal with these new rules in force from this week, requiring importers to make a full customs declaration on goods entering the UK from the EU or other countries. Though, as I've mentioned in previous videos, there is still an exemption in place for goods arriving from the Republic of Ireland to avoid a complete Brexit nightmare and an even bigger impact on the supply chain. Or perhaps because it's just that the government has decided that all these amazing Brexit gains are all too much for the British public to enjoy all at once, and that they should be spaced out through delays and implemented piecemeal bit by bit so we can all continue to get the maximum enjoyment from these amazing Brexit benefits over the next few years. British businesses exporting to the EU have already been facing these rules for the past year, a period that unsurprisingly saw reductions in exports to the EU. And now it's the turn of the importers to take back control. In other words, to deal with the tsunami of new Brexit bureaucracy. It's possible this won't lead to widespread shortages on the shelves, but it would appear very likely that there would be far less choice for shoppers and almost definitely a sharp rise in prices across the board. Expect to see inflation in 2022 at levels not seen for many years. HMRC have calculated that the additional costs caused by Brexit import red tape alone is likely to be around £13 billion per annum, and this will ultimately be passed on to consumers, to be enjoyed along with the uplift in national insurance taxation rates, soaring energy bills, real terms wage cuts, and reductions in universal credit. But back to ex-senior civil servant and the chief implementer of the Brexit deal, Philip Rycroft, who says that this is why the Office for Budget Responsibility forecasts that the net impact of this Brexit on our wealth as a country will be to reduce it by about 4% year on year over the medium term. That's the impact of the non-tariff barriers I mentioned earlier, meaning that because of all this Brexit red tape, trade between the UK and the EU is a lot less free than it was when we were in the single market. Meanwhile, Prime Minister for now Johnson has marked the first anniversary of the post-Brexit free trade deal coming into force by vowing to go further and faster to take advantage of the enormous potential that our new freedoms bring. Apart from the blue passports, crown symbols on pint glasses, a fast-tracked vaccine rollout and all those other things we were perfectly able to do while members of the EU, I'm not sure what freedoms he is referring to. Perhaps it's the trade deal with Australia that adds less than 0.1% to our GDP while destroying the British farming industry and adding to global heating. Or perhaps he's referring to the ability to replace EU freedom of movement, which helped fill all those low-skill, low-pay jobs that British workers don't want to do, with millions of guest workers from India taking higher-skilled and better-paid jobs. There again, it could be the ability to dump British raw sewage into British rivers, or the capacity to strip British citizens of their citizenship on a whim of the Home Secretary. Or maybe it's the new freedom for the government to outlaw democratic, peaceful protest, or to steal power from the courts and hand it to the government, or to make whistleblowing and investigative journalism a crime, or to abolish human rights legislation, or to further weaken what little employment protection rights remain. All of this can now be achieved without the pesky EU insisting on minimum standards in the workplace, minimum standards for agricultural produce, for the environment, for an independent judiciary, and for democratic freedoms.